The Vanishing Hotel Room. Jason Caldwell checked into the Langford Grand, a historic 5-star hotel in the heart of the city. It was an old building with a vintage charm, the kind of place that seemed frozen in time. The concierge handed him the key to room 803 with a warm smile. Tired from his long flight, Jason took the elevator up and entered his room. It was spacious, with elegant dark wood furniture and a large window overlooking the cityscape. He set his suitcase down, freshened up, and decided to explore the city before a business meeting the next morning. Several hours later, he returned to the hotel, stepping into the elevator and pressing the button for the 8th floor. As the doors slid open, he walked to where his room was supposed to be, but room 803 was gone. Confused, Jason glanced around. Maybe he was on the wrong floor? He walked down the hall, looking at the door numbers. 801, 802, 804. There was no room 803. The spot where his door should have been was now just a blank wall. Jason frowned and rubbed his temples. He knew he was tired, but this didn't make sense. He returned to the lobby and approached the concierge. "Excuse me, there's a problem." "My room isn't there." The concierge looked at him with a puzzled expression. "What room, sir?" "Room 803. I checked in earlier today." The man frowned, flipping through the records. "Sir, we don't have a room 803. Jason's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "I was just there. I left my suitcase inside." The concierge hesitated, then gestured to a bellboy. "Would you mind checking, James?" Jason followed the bellboy back to the 8th floor, his heart pounding. They walked the hallway again, no 803. Only a solid wall. The bellboy turned to him with an apologetic look. "Sir, I don't think this room exists." Frustration turned to fear. Jason pulled out his phone to call someone, his assistant, a friend. Anyone but his call log and photos from earlier in the day were gone. The confirmation email for his reservation. Deleted. He turned back to the bellboy, gripping his arm. "Look, I know this sounds crazy, but I was in that room. My suitcase is in there." The bellboy looked unsettled, but tried to remain professional. "Sir, I suggest we speak to the manager." Jason was led to the manager's office, where an older man with graying hair sat behind a desk. As Jason explained the situation, the manager's face grew pale. He finally exhaled and leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Caldwell, you're not the first person to say this." Jason stiffened. "What?" The manager nodded. "Decades ago, room 803 did exist, but something happened. A guest disappeared without a trace. No forced entry, no evidence, just gone. The room was permanently sealed off, and records of it were erased. But once in a while, someone like you comes along, someone who claims they checked in." Jason felt cold sweat bead on his forehead. "Then where did I stay?" The manager sighed. "That's the question, isn't it?" Jason bolted from the office, running back to the 8th floor. He banged on the blank wall, yelling for anyone to hear him. But no one did. His suitcase, his belongings, his very existence in room 803 were gone. And the Langford Grand stood, as it always had, as if nothing had ever happened. Jason refused to let it go. That night, he checked into another hotel, but sleep never came. He spent hours scouring the internet for any mention of room 803, but found nothing. No articles, no records, not even a passing comment in an old forum. It was as if the room had been erased from history. Frustrated, he returned to the Langford Grand the next morning. He had to know. But when he arrived, the concierge from the previous day was gone, replaced by a new face. Jason approached the desk cautiously. "I need to speak to the manager," he said. The receptionist smiled politely. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have a manager by that name." Jason felt his stomach drop. "What? The manager you mentioned doesn't work here." Jason stepped back. Something was very wrong. He turned to leave, but then stopped. His eyes flickered toward the guest book on the counter. Slowly, he flipped through the pages, searching for his name. It wasn't there. Panic surged through him. He ran to the elevator, punching the button for the 8th floor. When the doors opened, he stepped out trembling. This time, the hallway was different. The numbers had changed. 801, 802, 803, the door was back. Heart pounding, Jason reached out and turned the handle. It opened with a slow creak. Inside, his suitcase was exactly where he had left it. His clothes neatly arranged, his phone charging on the nightstand as if nothing had happened. Jason stepped inside cautiously, closing the door behind him. He turned back toward the bed, and the door was gone. The room was completely sealed. Jason ran his hands along the wall, searching for any crack, any sign of a door, but there was nothing. He was trapped. His breathing grew rapid as a cold wind brushed against his neck. He turned around, and for the first time, he noticed something else. The mirror above the dresser wasn't reflecting him. Instead, it showed a different man, one dressed in an old-fashioned suit, standing behind him. His expression was hollow, his eyes dark voids. Jason opened his mouth to scream, but there was no sound. And outside, in the hall of the Langford Grand, room 803 disappeared once more.